From Batman to Iceman and every gun-slinging bank robber in between, Val Kilmer certainly made his mark on 90s action films. We spoke on this show on Wednesday about the film star's death at the age of 65, and our film reviewer, Jason Gorber, has taken a couple of days to reflect on Kilmer's action-packed filmography. Jason's with us now. How are you?
Hi, David. How are you?
I'm okay. You're right in the right age bracket to have seen Kilmer's career from beginning to end. What was
you mean old? Yes, I'm old. Thank you, David.
There were other ways to say that. What was your first?
When I was 12, I saw a film that was transformative. It's a silly film, but it's an extraordinary film. Top Secret is this brash, bold comedy by the Zucker brothers, Abrams Zucker, who did Airplane and did Police Squad and all of that stuff. Essentially, Top Secret is a spoof of every sort of 40s war movie, but also Elvis movies. And in order to pull it off, you needed somebody who's going to nail incredible charisma, great singing chops, and incredible levels of silliness. And what they did was they found this extraordinary talent, this guy who was the youngest Juilliard acting student that they had ever admitted, this stunning physical specimen who could act, who could be silly, who could be serious in ways that were extraordinary, and that was Val Kilmer in Top Secret. If there's one film that sort of was absolutely transformative when I saw it, it was that one. And looking back, I think people will watch it and see it as a little bit goofy, but he was so great in it and so charismatic. And to put it in perspective, he then did Real Genius, it was a lot of fun, but his third film was this little tiny film about planes called Top Gun.
Oh, yes, I believe I've heard of it somewhere, yeah.
And him playing Iceman in Top Gun, he's amazing in that movie. He's just incredible. But I saw Top Gun as the Val Kilmer movie, starring this newcomer kid named Tom Cruise who was trying to hold his own against Val Kilmer. That's 100% how I went into that film when I saw it.
Really? That's how you saw that film? Okay, yeah.
100%. And then when I saw films like Willow or even films like The Doors, where it was just, you felt that this was a guy absolutely at that level, at that cusp of movie superstardom. He had the looks, he had the chops, he had everything that was going to make it. Stuff like Tombstone. He's fantastic as Doc Holliday. So then we come to the inevitable question, how come Tom Cruise is now basically is described as I've described him as the last big movie superstar, the old school movie star, and how come Val Kilmer ended up doing stuff that wasn't quite as good as late in his career? And one answer to that is him. But he's self-reflective about that. And as I've been saying, as reflecting upon this, there was a documentary that came out just a couple of years ago, played Cannes in 2021, called Val, based in part on his autobiography. It deals with the stuff that we know about. He got throat cancer, and that sort of offset him. He was doing a bunch of plays. He did this amazing Mark Twain stuff. But he was not the easiest guy to work with. The choices he made weren't the easiest. But also, I think Hollywood wasn't necessarily ready for his kind of moxie. It wasn't ready. They wanted him to be a very particular old school movie star. And I think that he was pushing at things, even when he did stuff like Batman. When he shows up in True Romance as Elvis Presley and you never see his face. I think that 10 years later, he would have had an extraordinary career, even more so extraordinary than he has now, because you only need to look at people like Brad Pitt. And Brad Pitt is one of those actors who managed to overcome just being the pretty boy in all these movies and get into these deep and heavy and incredibly impactful films, but also do one for them and one for him. So I think looking at Val Kilmer, you have movies, again, people love Heat. People love True Romance. But you look at like something like Red Planet, which was absolutely execrable. It was a terrible, terrible movie that he got sucked into doing. He worked with Marlon Brando, his hero, on a film that just was not great. they just didn't know how to work with him, and he didn't necessarily know how to work with others. So he's a fascinating character to look at, somebody who absolutely was at that level of what we think of as the superstar of superstars, somebody like Tom Cruise, and just went in a slightly different direction. That being said, absolutely, if you look at his filmography, there are movies here that, as long as we watch movies, we will be watching movies with Val Kilmer in them. And for that reason alone, his loss as a performer is greatly felt.
Let me ask you about another movie, another big name, The Beatles. There's this project to have 4 Beatle movies come out, and they're going to come out all at the same time.
Yeah, how crazy is that?
Well, there's a lot of people with hot takes on this, and I wonder what yours is.
My hot take is that there's this band out of Liverpool called the Beatles that are also quite big. So if there's one thing, as crazy as it is, I think that there are generations of people that don't actually get what the Beatles actually are. I've described it in a weird way of like Leonardo DiCaprio, Leonardo da Vinci's Mona Lisa. We just know it's a painting, but when you finally see it, it's like you can't even grasp about what this painting means, or even think about other Da Vinci things. Beethoven, we think of the 5th and we think of the 9th. We don't think of these other things. The Beatles transformed popular culture in a way which is indescribable. And so maybe it will take 4 films to even get a hint of what it was that they did. Sure, maybe this is entirely cash grab. The best thing that I saw about all of this was somebody had complained that it sounded like when they cast Joseph Quinn, Barry Keoghan, Harris Dickinson, and Paul Mescal in this film, that it was like a 14-year-old was going on to their TikTok or their Instagram, deciding who their favorite actors were and deciding to cast that way. And my response is, that is actually perfect, because that sense of speaking to this enormous fame, this sort of quirky charisma, all of this stuff is absolutely there. Sam Mendes is an extraordinary filmmaker. He's absolutely deeply passionate about it. But I believe there's a real opportunity here to get sort of to expand our vision of beyond the hits and all that stuff. Many of us who are Beatles fans, I'm a giant Beatles fan, will probably know most of the narrative that they're doing. But I generally think this 4-film structure, in a funny way, is a good way of actually exploring the multifacets of this. I'm dying to see the Ringo movie. I'm absolutely dying to see these films that individually take on different perspectives from each individual. And as you know, there's a very famous film, Rashomon, by Kurosawa, that shows the same event from multiple perspectives. And that way, we could conceivably see each different element, each different section take on a different way. How the Candlestick Park concert was dealt with in one way, how going to Marrakesh was dealt with in another way. All these sort of key Beatley moments, the rooftop concert, et cetera, et cetera. The big touchstone moments will be there, but it's actually the deep and more intimate and more introspective elements that will use the Beatles and their magnitude of their fame in ways that are extraordinary. I have hope. Or it could be just a disaster. 4 films are coming out within a month, and we're like, why are you doing this? Why are you selling the indication of one of the great bands of all time? Who knows? I'm just excited that the opportunity is being made by an extraordinary filmmaker who I really genuinely think is going to do everything he can to make sure the Beatles are done justice on the big screen.
We have to wait till April of 2028, however.
We do, but in the meantime, you have a lot of... I recommend Revolver. That's a pretty good record for those of you that have not heard of it. I think you should go listen to Revolver.
All right. Jason Gorber, thank you very much.
All the best, David. Take care.
That's Jason Gorber, Metro Morning's film columnist.
Thanks, Shelf.